evil webs we weave when we practice to deceive. Yes, the honketing is happening, and the world leaders are not happy about it. Biden Trudeau talk convoys as U.S. braces for Canadian style protests. We see a mobilization of some of the more challenging political elements, Trudeau said. Now, if you saw my last video, which I highly recommend watching because it's totally breaks down why this is going on. They've been trying to get these electronic self-driving trucks on the road for years, and the only reason they're willing to sell out these truckers is because they want these electronic trucks, so because humans are too hard to control. And the thing is, these truckers are, they've been delivering you everything that you own for your entire life, and this is how they get treated by the government and the world leaders, literally keeping the society intact and in place. This is how they treat the most important parts of our society. Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau compared notes Friday on the trucker convoy protest and agreed to coordinate on shutting down the destabilizing demonstrations. The Canadian Prime Minister said he and the U.S. President spoke about the American and global influences behind a movement that has blocked key border crossings and occupied downtown Ottawa for weeks. Trudeau said he also spoke with Biden about the forced closures of 3 ports of entry, including the Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. President Biden and I both agree that for the security of the people and the economy, these blockades cannot continue, Trudeau told reporters. Well, it's really funny because for the security of the people and the economy, like y'all literally, at least in America, our politicians paid to get people out of jail who were burning and destroying cities and businesses and causing harm to people. And that was civil good, protest. But this is a bad protest, a peaceful protest. Yeah, that's the worst kind of protest because, nothing's worse than freedom of speech to these guys. Trudeau told reporters Friday in Ottawa, before later adding, everything is on the table because this unlawful activity has to end. Sounds like a child throwing a hissy fit. And it will end. Ah! Of course, I can't say too much more now as to exactly when or how this ends, because unfortunately we are concerned about violence. They're concerned about violence which hasn't happened, but yet they weren't concerned about violence when it was against the people, but now they're concerned about violence when the government attacks the people. The leaders Trudeau said discussed what he called a US based effort to flood 911 phone calls in Ottawa this week, the presence of American citizens in the blockades, and the influence of large amounts of foreign cash, especially from south of the border, i.e. America, being funneled towards the convoy activities. And here's the thing, they're taking all that money and giving it and stealing it and giving it to other people, creating a fraud situation where people have given money to, an event and just haven't had it stolen, no big deal. Trudeau said he and Biden discussed how the Canadian demonstrations are linked to global frustrations with the pandemic itself, COVID-19 restrictions, and the governments that impose the public health measures. No, you got the last part right. This is about human rights and the government imposing its will and literally like forcing people out of their jobs. Doctors, teachers, truckers, school bus drivers. Like, you forced everyone where they can't work, and you created like a citizen and non-citizen class, and then just tell everyone to like fuck off if you don't obey the government. Yeah, that was not a good idea. That was not a good idea. The call came as Canadian authorities struggled to contain the Freedom Convoy, in quotations, demonstrations that began last month to protest vaccine mandates for truckers at the border. The movement has evolved into a heavily funded and highly coordinated effort to end all COVID-19 restrictions amid calls to bring down Canada's political establishment. Now, I actually saw an article earlier today that the miners are getting in on the convoy now, and they're literally driving mining equipment to block in these trucks. Like, they're not going to be able to tow mining equipment. Like you've really fucked up. You've really fucked up. The protesters say they won't budge until all COVID restrictions have all been removed, and for some, until Trudeau resigns. Wow, that's kind of cool. I didn't know they were asking that. But the participation of figures connected to the right wing extremism, right wing extremism. It's literally like the working class rising. This is literally what the communists have always wanted: the workers to take back the power. This isn't right wing. Whatever, has amped up fears about violence if authorities were to move in on protests with force. Well, if you attack people, there's going to be violence because you're attacking people. What? What? Okay. An Ontario court granted an injunction Friday evening that opens the door for police to move protesters from the foot of the Ambassador Bridge. I'm disappointed that it had to come to this, Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins said in a statement about the injunction that gave demonstrators until 7 p.m. Friday to leave. That has had that timeline has passed, so we'll do an update later and see how that went. Meanwhile, the Canadian protesters are encouraging copycat anti-government campaigns around the globe. U.S. authorities are bracing for an American version of the movement that could launch as early as this weekend and disrupt the Super Bowl. Now, Tim Pool's been doing some talk on that, and I'm trying to do some research. Don't have everything in order yet, but seems that the Super Bowl might be a bit of a psyop, just like that like right wing protest where they were like that it was all like feds, like and to throw off the people who aren't really like involved in the movement itself. Because the only thing that that's going to do is like piss off ordinary people, and this is about the government, not about. But it could be to get, as CNN said, to get publicity for the protest. But at the same time, I just don't see the Super Bowl as being effective as affecting politicians. We're not trying to fuck over regular people. Well, okay, I'm not a part of the movement, but I don't see why they would want to fuck over regular people when they should just be disrupting government activities. Trudeau warned that some involved in the movement in Canada, the US, and beyond are trying to undermine the confidence that people have in their institutions, in their democracies, and in their fellow citizens. Well, I don't have any fucking confidence in you people because you take away our rights without even feeling guilty, and then you turn entire groups of people and demonize them and call them all Nazis and right-wing extremist and terrorist and insurrectionist, of just like normal ass people using their freedom of speech. Yeah, y'all don't have any trust. No one has confidence in you. You have stolen the confidence. No one will ever trust you. I will never trust any of these politicians. Left-wing and most of these right-wing politicians have broken my trust too. There's like, you people are trash. Biden expressed concern not just for the impacts right now, but the indication that there is international support from the United States and from elsewhere around the world for these protests, Trudeau said. We see a mobilization of some of the more challenging political elements in Canada and in the United States around support for these blockades. Trudeau added that around 50% of the funds flowing to the convoy organizers through some online platforms have come from U.S. donors. The movement has quickly raised millions of dollars. Actually, because U.S. likes freedom, asshole. In terms of the presence of Americans in our protest, I can assure you that our police services are monitoring carefully and watching and coordinating with the partner agencies around the world, he said without elaborating. This is why no one has confidence in you and trusts you. You're talking about these people like they're Al-Qaeda or some bullshit. The Prime Minister also said officials in Canada are considering offers from U.S. side to help with the protest, but he declined to get into specifics. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's office offered to do whatever is required this week, including sending our heavy equipment to remove vehicles, a senior Canadian government official told Politico Friday that Trudeau and Biden discussed the possibility of American tow trucks could be sent to remove the some of the protesters' vehicles. So now U.S. government is getting involved in protest of other countries trying to take away rights from. Didn't we used to like fight to spread democracy and freedom around the world, but now we're literally using our equipment to hinder freedom? That's an interesting turn of events. The official who spoke on the condition of anonymity said Trudeau spoke with Biden about demonstrations in Toronto, Quebec City, where authorities have prevented the rallies from becoming Ottawa style occupations. The official said the U.S. president acknowledged the demonstrations are a shared problem between the countries. On Friday, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Biden used the call to tell Trudeau he's concerned about U.S. companies and workers experiencing serious effects. You don't give a fuck about U.S. workers. You only care about the companies and their employers. But whatever. Experiencing serious effects from the border obstructions, including slowdowns in production, shortened work hours, and plant closures. I've heard several plants have already closed. The Prime Minister promised quick action in enforcing the law, and the President thanked him for the steps he and other Canadian authorities are taking to restore open passage of the bridges to the U.S. So, thank you for being authoritarians and not caring about humanity. That's what our president has to say about, people protesting for their right, even though he said that, to murder and kill and burn people, that was cool. Peaceful protest though. Anyway, we're getting a bit long here. Oh shoot. Yeah, that. Anyway, guys, this is what's going on. The Great Honkening is probably one of the most beautiful uses of peaceful protest I have ever seen. Peaceful protest is necessary. Violent protest never works. Government will only respond with violence because violence is the only response that they have. The only thing that they can do is send people with guns to enforce their laws. And they're going to sit here and talk about how they're afraid of everyone else being violent when they are the true purveyors who have a monopoly on violence and use violence around the world, including in our own country, to manipulate its citizens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Conservanerd out. Y'all have a great weekend.